the last match, the men's War Games match, that was definitely something that I think put a nice bow on the PLE. That was overall mixed. Like, at least it left me feeling good. Because, yeah, like, there were some high points and low points throughout Survivor Series, but the ending was strong. I thought the storytelling in this match was just about as good as you could get for a War Games match. Because inherently the format is something I'm not the biggest fan of. Because there's this big delay between the actual wrestlers coming into the match.
Yeah.
The match doesn't even start until we've already been here for like a half hour, 40 minutes. It's just not the best format to me overall. But this is kind of the best way you can do it, where we're like building towards the biggest players coming into the match. But the people that are still coming in throughout are adding to the story in their own individual ways. Like, I thought it was awesome how Solo was kind of dictating who was going to go out when, and kind of, to use WWE's terminology that they love to use so much, calling the plays.
Yeah.
You know, and everyone following his kind of orders. And then Roman, on the opposite side of things, complete opposite. He's trying to keep everyone in line and have everyone doing what he wants to do, and it's all a clusterfuck. Everyone's just doing what they want. So, like, just within the entrances, that told the story of the match within itself, which is, like, such great storytelling, you know what I mean? And then just the in-ring action as well, with, you know, Roman coming in and helping everyone up except Punk. Roman having to climb into the fucking match in the first place. Yep. All of the action we had building up into it with the Tongans, I thought actually did really well. Kind of an underrated performance in this match.
That for fucked up Jey Uso Tamatonga, was it?
Yeah, exactly. The Usos also kind of having that reunification, being one of the things that carried the storyline earlier on in the match, was the Jay and Jimmy reunification in ring. That was really fun to see.
Against Bronson, that was cool.
And Bronson Reed, another guy who just put on a fucking brilliant performance, in my opinion.
Injured, bro?
I hope not, because he's been on fire the last few months. So I hope that he's good. You know, we've talked about it before. I'm a massive Bronson Reed mark. And so I'm hoping that he's all good. I'm fucking, dude, whatever you hurt, I'll give you mine, and you can have it. I hope you're good, because that dude needs to stay out there week to week. He's cooking right now. But just overall, for a stipulation, a format that I think is a bit slow-paced inherently, this was the way to do it, where it's building up tension the whole time. And then when we finally get to that point where everyone's in the ring, from the wrestler's perspective, but the referees still can't get in because the chain that Solo put on there. And you've got Punk and Roman starting to kind of get into it a bit, and everything's kind of going to shit for the babyface bloodline. And then who else comes out but Paul Heyman? And the fucking shot, it was literally like, again, it's one of those words that gets a bit overused in this community, but it really does apply here. It was so cinematic. It was cinema. When you've got Heyman in the middle on the outside of the cage and Roman on one side, Punk on the other, and he's screaming at them at the top of his lungs, begging them to work together, and the last thing he says is like, "This is War Games." And right as he finishes saying that, it's like, ding, 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 the match has officially begun. I actually got chills when that happened. I was like, holy fuck, like, that was fire. Like, this fool comes in, gives them this whole thing, and then it's like, now the match actually starts. Like, both emotionally for the baby faces in the match, now it's actually begun, and officially in the wrestling context, the match has begun. Like, it was just such a perfect way to string everything together with the kind of feud that was somewhat brewing between Roman and Punk, and then Heyman coming out to tie it all together.
The long storyline building, supposedly, with the Heyman owing Punk a favor.
And
now.
I love that type of shit. Like, the whole thing when Rock came out, the Raw after WrestleMania, this last Mania this year, and he comes out and whispers something into Cody's ear and gave him something, and we still haven't been told, like, what all that connects to. I fucking love that shit. Because it's like, dude, knowing Triple H and how this creative has been, I can trust that all of this will kind of come into play at some point down the line. And that's really exciting for us who tune in every single week to Raw and SmackDown and watch all the PLEs and really invest into these storylines. I feel like I'm investing into something that matters. And these are those little moments that, like, Heyman owing Punk a favor and the whole Roman finally for the first time not fully trusting his wise man and this whole that's fucking awesome. And I love the fact that now it can like get brought up. I'm sure they'll probably mention it on this next Raw or something, but then it can kind of just get dropped for however long going forward. And then eventually, my assumption, my guess, and I've seen other people saying this, is that whenever Roman is champion eventually again, which we know will happen at some point, that will be one of, if not the first feuds that he has to do, is Punk coming back and kind of saying, hey, Heyman owes me that favor, you gotta wrestle me at whatever the fuck. That to me is awesome because it like plants those seeds for a feud that we can have. It might not even be for 6, 8, 12 months, but it's planting those seeds of something that when it does happen, the payoff is going to be so sweet. This is one of the moments where it's like, let Triple H cook. And I hear it. Okay. I feel it.
We'll see.
Sometimes when people be saying this shit, it pisses me off. Because it's like, no, we don't need to let this fool stay in the kitchen for 10 fucking years. I'm hungry. You know what I mean? Let Tiffany cash in the money in the bank. You know, let Damian cash. That's what we were saying earlier. Goddamn, fucking, just all of these different feuds don't need to take 12 months to develop. But when the situation makes sense to plant that seed and just let it sit there for a while and marinate, I appreciate when that happens, and I feel like it's justified. And this is one of those moments where we've planted a really interesting seed. And so I personally was super satisfied with the ending of this War Games match. Them hitting their Fortnite emotes for a few minutes was a little long and dragged out. I get where people were a bit upset with that. But I think that the overall dissatisfaction with the ending is super unjustified. Super unjustified. I think a lot of fans are stuck in the last year's Survivor Series when, what do we have? At the end of the whole show, everything's done, everything's over, we're all celebrating, blah, blah, blah. The little copyright hits in the corner, WWE, blah, 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 blah. But then what happens? And everyone in Chicago goes fucking crazy. We got the CM Punk return. People were expecting something along those lines. I think of The Rock or even Seth Rollins or Paul Heyman potentially telling CM Punk, hey, you know, beat the shit out of Roman. You know, something as far as a big surprise and a big twist after the main event. And I think that people are just kind of overreaching. Like, not every single event can have that, or else it just becomes an overplayed trope. Like, if every single Survivor Series we start expecting some big twist, it doesn't become much of a twist anymore. Like, the beauty of wrestling is that you're not supposed to be able to predict everything that happens. And that's the problem with shows like ours and all the other wrestling shows on the internet and everywhere else, is that we all sit here and pick apart and try and predict every single thing that's going to happen. And sometimes we get it right, which like feels good and is fun. But there's also a beauty to like everyone kind of, and I was in the same boat. I was kind of sitting there expecting something might happen. And then when it didn't, the difference is I didn't get like upset. I was like, they got us. All right, you know, like we'll move on to the next one, because I know that we're getting right into Mania season and all these big names that people were expecting, like The Rock and everything. Like, he'll be here very soon. It's not like he's just disappeared. Like, that will all be back, I'm sure. But to get like super upset and then like undermine the rest of what I think was a really strong PLE overall, I think is just like, bruh, like, just because you got yourself hyped up on this idea that some big surprise was coming and it didn't.
Yeah.
That's on you. Like, overall, we've had much worse PLEs throughout the year. There was not one stinker match. There wasn't a single match that was like trash.
Oh no, definitely. I agree with you.
The Women's War Games match, for the flaws that it had from a booking perspective, yes, we agreed that we didn't like the heels losing. We didn't like that the Jade stuff got swept under the rug, kinda.
There was definitely a lot of slow botches and shit.
But there was really dope moments throughout, like that fucking crazy EO trash can shit. And just overall great highlight moments throughout that, like, even that I can call an overall good match. Despite some of the problems we had with it. And if that's, like, probably the worst match story-wise overall that we're saying is on the card, that means we had a pretty good show. Like, yeah, we're not super thrilled with the direction that Damien has at the moment. That's, like, one of the bigger negatives that we both agreed on. But overall, is there a whole lot of super strong negatives, like, compared to Money in the Bank, where they burn the men's briefcase and there's all this other shit that happened, and it's like, dude, what the fuck was the point of that whole show? Like, we've had some stinker PLEs this year. Love Papa H, let him cook. But goddamn, sometimes you cook up some shit. You know? I don't think this was one of those times where we got served a pile of shit.
I respect.
I think we got served a pretty solid 7.5 out of 10. 7 out of 10, somewhere in there, PLE. It wasn't a fucking game changer, mind-blowing, oh my god, banger. But they can't all be. You know, it was solid. It was not disappointing. I was not disappointed. Were you disappointed? You can be honest. If you disagree, you disagree. Were you disappointed?
No. No.
So there you go.
When I was texting you, I tried to keep it low key. I was like, oh, I got surprised. I literally texted you that. I don't know if you figured it out, but it was during the Shinsuke and late night match. That's when I texted you that.
Okay, I thought it was gonna be during Gunther and Damien, but
No.
okay. Okay.
It was during that match. I was like, oh shit.
Okay.
Damn.
Yeah. That was the same reaction that me and my girlfriend had though when we were watching. We were like, oh wow, like damn, like we were both surprised. Like, yes, I wanted to see Shinsuke get that big win, but I just didn't think it would happen. It was definitely a shock. Definitely a shock. I feel like we gotta call this a strong PLE overall. Closed out the year on a solid note. I mean, I guess Saturday night main event coming up still, but
Yeah.
solid year of PLEs.
We'll see how it is.